October 22nd Board of Education meeting to order. Thank you all for being here. It's nice to see some people in the audience. I will open it up now to public audience. If anyone has anything they'd like to share, say, ask. All right, moving on, we'll go to board admin. Oh, we have someone, great. Oh, yeah, it's you. Please state your name and give us your address, and you have 3 minutes.
In my what?
You have 3 minutes.
That's fine, I get it.
Perfect.
Good time. Dwayne Royce, I live in the Harvest Hill Road, and I was here a year ago for another, almost same reason. Read about evening pickleball requesting consideration at the Simsbury Elementary School. Seniors are now playing pickleball in the spring, summer, and fall. 8 to 12 players playing during the week, and often 20 players on Saturday morning at Henry James with the lines up there. Weather will stop for pickleball in mid to late November. Considering that, we see that there's 5 elementary schools that have gyms in Simsbury. Custodians are at school until 11 p.m. at night. The pickleball could be played a few weekday evenings from 6:30 to 8:30. Special pickleball tape can be applied to the court, and later on it does come up. It does come up, and the adhesive is soluble for removal. Pickleball lines on gym floors with other lines that are common. Bloomfield New Community Center has lines for basketball, badminton, pickleball, and another line I don't know what it's for. They do play on it, and I've heard people play in the other line. They pay attention to their lines of different colors. We propose or request of the Board of Education consider and approve evening pickleball at a elementary school. Prefer central, but others may be work better within the school system. Tom Tabinski is familiar with the pickleball group needs, and he has talked to them, and he's willing to review the needs and contracts to enable Simsbury to continue pickleball for seniors or anyone else this winter.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great information. Please leave it with Katie.
With you.
We can look into that for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming. Any other public audience? You're supporting him.
He's got a lot of support.
It's good. Message received. Thank you very much.
Ballers are here. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks for coming out. And I'm going to do board and administrative communications.
All right,
Kayla?
so as some of you might have seen on the news, Latimer Lane has been preparing for their huge All for Kids consignment sale on October 19th, which was very successful. On the 25th, they will be hosting a Halloween family parade and dance from 6:30 to 8 o'clock. From November 19th to the 21st, they have held their annual Scholastic Book Fairs, which kids can go down and buy books and games that interest them. On November 1st, first graders will be attending the Bushnell as a field trip, and grade 4 will visit Westmore Park. Latimer Lane families came together to have a dine out at Puerto Vallarta, and were able to raise $900 for the PTO. At Tooten Hills last week, there was a fire department visit paid to Tooten Hills, who oversaw the third fire drill of the year. And first graders will be going to the Children's Museum for a field trip on October 24th, and they'll have their Halloween party on October 31st. At Squadron Line, during the week of October 11th, they had a welcome back carnival for their 4th, 5th, and 6th grade students. And they had their first squad meeting, which was on October 11th, where groups of students from K through 6 meet with a certified teacher who helps teach them to have a stronger sense of respect for everyone. At Central, the Central School Lyman Orchard Pie and Cookie Dough fundraiser has been going on since October 15th, and they will distribute all ordered goods by November 25th, just in time for Thanksgiving. At Tierfield, on October 11th, Tierfield had their second climb assembly of the school year, and students were ecstatic to receive their feat for being caring, respectful, responsible, and showing good citizenship. A Halloween parade will be held Sunday, October 27th at the firehouse. Yeah, Sunday, October 27th at the firehouse, where they will march to the village green. This Thursday, a pasta night will be held from 5:30 to 4:30 to get the community together. At the middle school, last week, Henry James hosted a great 7th grade ice cream social, which allowed all the 7th graders to get to know each other in a relaxed and fun atmosphere after school. And they also had a 7th grade field trip to Winding Trails as a part of this team building activity. Henry James is celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month and has various trivia questions for their students to answer, and Spanish teachers have created a beautiful poster in honor of the celebration. The Henry James Student Council presents Fall Festival on October 25th after school from 2:45 to 5 o'clock. This event is open to 7th and 8th graders and will include many fun games and refreshments. For the first time ever, the Henry James Student Council will be sponsoring for the first time ever, they're sponsoring their Fall Fest. All students are invited to participate in the Daughters of the American Revolution essay contest, and this year's topic is the Mayflower. Winners can earn a prize of $25, $50, $75, or $100. Now, at the high school today, we had some visitors from Boar's Head come during lunch waves and treat the students and staffs to various meat and cheese samples. On October 16th, all freshmen, sophomore, and juniors were required to participate in the PSAT Day, and gospel choir began on October 10th, and middle schoolers of all musical backgrounds were invited to experience all that Simsbury High School Music Department had to offer.
Awesome,
Taylor.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sharon?
So last week, we had our Health Equity Council. Very interesting meeting last week. What we focused on a lot through the meeting was an opportunity to identify a definition of what thinking about work,
I was gonna say.
of what equity is. And then there was another group that talked about beliefs. Another group talked about stance. Okay, and so at the end, what we did was we took a member from each group to try to review what had been put together, and that'll be what we're going to work on going forward. But great opportunity, interesting discussions in each group, I'm sure. There was a plea amongst all of us for more time, so it was really interesting discussion. And we'll have more to report on as we go forward.
Excellent,
Right.
thank you. And the Equity Council is made up of?
The Equity Council is made up of folks from the community, the school. We have teachers, students, community members. We have members from Board of Ed and administrators.
Great.
Okay, and when we say students, we have some seniors. We have actually a sophomore and some juniors. So as the seniors
I think
go.
there was even a freshman, wasn't there?
And I was going to say, that's what I paused. I was like, I think there was a freshman right over,
They'll
yeah.
be able to continue the work
So
for
the
a
work
few
will
years, which is nice.
continue, yeah.
Great.
So really great mix of people.
Excellent, thank you.
Nothing to report.
Okay.
So curriculum committee met last week, and so we have a little bit to talk about there. We reviewed 2 new courses. One is a computer science course, so it'll be under the STEM strand, STEM elective. We currently offer 2 AP computer science classes, and now we're going to offer a level 2 Java?
This is the Java.
The
yes.
Java language class. So the other 2 classes are incredibly popular, and we just want to round it out, make sure we're opening up all the opportunities to everybody. We already have a level 2 in, I'm putting you on the spot. The other.
Principals.
Principals, yes. And so now this will give us level 2 in Java. So that's a great one moving forward.
We do have a lot of students enrolled, over 125 kids enrolled in our current computer science courses, so.
Yep. And then we're putting in a Math 9 support class. So what this is going to do is basically the class would be set up to run in tandem with the math class for our struggling students who are coming into the high school to maybe help them along. So 80% of the class is pre-teaching what they're going to learn in their class. 20% is reteaching what they've already learned in their class, so that they will walk into their the classroom for math much more prepared for what they're about to learn and study. And we think it's just a really great way to bring these kids along and make sure everybody's getting that same foundation so that they can go through the high school at a better pace with their peers and be able to get more out of their math classes.
Who's going to be teaching that?
That has not been decided yet.
Right.
A math
But it will be a certified math teacher. It will be a math teacher in the high school.
English, for sure.
It will be a math teacher in the high school. Not
person
me.
hasn't been.
How many students do you think that this will probably
It could
target?
be anywhere from 25 to 30 students at the most, and it will be looked at on a
That's great.
quarterly or half-year.
Semester basis.
Semester basis, depending on the need of.
It's
the
basically a
student.
math lab, a defined math lab.
Correct.
Right, and the classes would
With
be
structure.
small,
Yes.
like 10 kids in a class, if we can do it that way.
That's great.
Yep.
And at the end of the semester, if they're doing well, that's a discussion as to whether they want to stay in it or move on to another half-year elective.
No, and it supports, as our math and focus in the elementaries.
Correct.
It'll support the kids that didn't get that and will need it, and hopefully it'll all kind of filter out.
We hope.
Perfect.
Thanks to the state of Connecticut, we are adding to our gym requirements. So we will now have 2 credits of gym that need to be completed by the end of high school, instead of the 1.5 we currently have. So it's going to add a semester, which we are calling lifetime
Like that,
activities.
You're so happy they're leaving.
Look at those seniors smiling. So you will have Wellness 9, 10, and 11.
Not me.
And at some point, you're going to have the choice to, when, you don't have the choice of taking it, but when you add lifetime activities to your schedule. So it's a semester class that you're going to have to take before you finish high school. And that's going to be more of lifetime activities. So we were talking about it like it's tennis, or it's golf, or it's pickleball, or it's. So yeah, listen,
Speak into the audience, you got it. There you go. There you go. Nicely done.
That's pretty good.
Very impressive.
I can think on my feet. And then we are also, Erin, you have to help me now, American Sign Language, and
So
I
we're
totally
looking to
lost my
pilot.
thread.
We've had some requests and interest in American Sign Language.
Thank you.
And so we will be asking students in the springtime. It will not be in the program of studies, but we will put a request out to students and see how many we have as an interest and look for it potentially to be an online course, as we did with our AP Chinese to begin, so that we can see the interest level. And I'm working with districts near us, and they're doing very similar, trying to find how many kids are interested and what's the staffing going to look like. So that will be a pilot course that we'll look at for next year.
And then, you seniors can smile again, class of 2023 will now have a 1 credit requirement of a capstone course. So we talked a lot about this. If you think of our strands, the project Lead the Way, a lot of them kind of end in a culminating activity. One of the nice things we talked about was if you are taking visual arts and you're in that strand, the art shows your culminating activity, and maybe you have to stay in your booth and present to somebody. I have someone who didn't stay in their booth. But there is natural progressions in many, many cases. The challenge may be finding kids who don't have a strand that they really are passionate about and finding the way to get them hooked into a project that they want to take to that level. So you will have to present. So you will have to have a mentor. So there's stuff that we need to work out, but this is coming for the class of 2023.
And I think the highlight with all of this is it's aligned to the vision of the graduate competencies.
Anyway.
So really building those 6 skills of students around critical thinking, communication, collaboration, self-directed learner, innovation, and global citizen. And those are the kinds of things that we're looking for kids, that they're not going to, be able to show all of them at one time, but it's the culmination of that work as they get. And just as we heard what Josh did, when we heard that at the last meeting, that's a really prime example of really going beyond and learning more about an area that was of interest to Josh. So those are the kinds of things that are really exciting.
What happens to kids who have a couple of those strands that they're working through and have maybe 2 capstones? I mean, how does that Will there
Well,
be kids that are,
I
some
think
kids that are doing?
There could be, but I
double
think they
APs?
would highlight the area of interest or the one that they have the most passion towards. That would be the area that they would focus on. And as Susan mentioned, those students that are struggling and unsure of what they're looking for, putting a course in, that would be a humanities capstone or some type of capstone, independent
yeah.
capstone course to help guide them through the research and the preparation and then the presentation.
And we talked a little bit about how, like, for some kids, maybe it is U.S. history that, you know, rings their bell or whatever, and so that's, maybe that, through your U.S. history class, you discover what your project might be. So,
And some of them can be independent study as well.
right. So there's a lot of ways it can feed in, and I think it can all be great. And then finally, in your folder,
We had a lot to talk about.
I'm like, you guys are busy.
we were very busy. You see the seal of biliteracy.
Aaron's back.
Aaron is back and cleaning up my.
Woo! Best news ever.
So, the seal of biliteracy, Aaron, I'm just gonna
Yes,
let you.
the seal of biliteracy came from the state of Connecticut, and it's where students with their world language, they can demonstrate a biliteracy skill in another language, obviously, of what they are studying. They have to meet the requirements of their English course, which if they're on track to meet the 4 credits of English, they're fine. We're going to pilot this, you'll see, on December 11th on our early release day. Right now, we have well over 50 and probably more than that of students that are interested in acquiring what we call the seal of biliteracy, which will go on their transcript. And we're offering it in all of the language, in Spanish, French, Chinese, and Latin. And there's an assessment that they take, and if they score, plus they gain their English credit, they will get this, what you see on the front, the seal of biliteracy. So many districts in Connecticut are doing this, and we're excited to get it going.
Sounds great.
I'm done.
That's a lot of stuff.
You may be done, but I have a question.
You're not done.
Seriously, forget not necessarily the seal, but so there's 5 or 6 courses that Sue mentioned, or you both mentioned. Some of it in sort of in that core course realm as well. So does that mean will some be taken off the table?
No, the computer science, as Sue described, we had in the principles, we had the level 2 and the AP principles, and we only had the AP Java course, so that's what's rounding that out. So we're not taking anything out, that's actually going in. And the math 9 course is for a small number of students. I'm not sure what the American Sign Language course will do. We are in the midst of exploring our capstone experiences. We are going to have some kids that will present. It will be the Tuesday after Memorial Day. I think it's May 26th that we're trying to explore and get kids interested. It's not a requirement for their graduation requirements, but we're going to see some of that this spring. So that'll be really
Be a nice
interesting.
taste for the
be
kids
great.
coming up to
Correct.
understand what's expected.
I mean, we have been working on certain courses of capstone work for a long
Years.
time.
Yes.
In Simsbury, but
Yes, we
not
have.
statewide, so.
But it became a requirement, a graduation requirement. So
2023.
we want to make sure that we're working through all the creases and getting them worked out, so that we would love to be able to see juniors and/or seniors. They can pick. We're trying to put choice in for students so that they could do it during their junior and/or senior year, or they might choose it in the second half of junior, first half of senior year. So there's going to be different ways in which to look at it. We don't know all the answers yet.
That's really why I'm asking. I want
Yeah.
some flexibility so these guys, these
Yeah.
kids can still have some electives in there somewhere.
Well, that's
So,
exactly,
yeah, that's
right,
great.
Well,
right.
but the hope is maybe the capstone comes out of the
Yeah,
electives
yeah,
that
yeah.
they like.
That's exactly what it
That's
was.
the hope.
Yeah.
And that's what we're really looking at is our current program of studies and what we currently offer and what will then, lend itself to that.
Yeah. No, thank you.
That sounds great. Really exciting stuff. Mrs. Hammark-Lemke.
Just wanted to share with the board that this coming Thursday, October 24th, will be the Spirit Council's second meeting as well. So just as a reminder, Spirit Council is the broader Simsbury community efforts around equity and what that looks like here in town. So it will be co-chaired, the committee, by Kristen Fermanick, who's our Director of Social Services, as well as Nicole Kodak, who's a Simsbury resident. And that committee will look at more of, again, the community efforts at large. So certainly we'll be updating the board as those actions come to fruition.
And thank you for your work on the equity council that we had meeting. You ran that beautifully, and it was a wonderful program.
Group effort.
And you did it with, what was the name of the group that worked with us?
The Center for School Change.
Center for School Change, and they were the people, and we're trying to build a mission statement and points of interest that I think, how to get the work done, and I thought it was just really well run and really impressive. Thank you very much for all your hard
Great. They're
work.
great to collaborate with.
Facilities and Enrollment Task Force continues to move along with its next meeting next Wednesday night, October 30th, 6 p.m. in this room. And then the outcomes from that process really will be the main agenda item at your next board meeting on November 12th.
Thank you very much.
So with Kayla and Susan, I don't have a lot to say.
I'm sorry. Excuse
I
me, one
love it.
second.
I love it. Thank
Erin,
you.
1 second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We have a question.
So, Neil, for the facilities, is it open? Is that meeting open to community?
It's a public meeting.
It is a
yeah.
public, yeah, that's what I was asking. And it's 6 to 9
6 to 8 usually.
in here?
Yep.
So just one quick item that I have is that we have an early release tomorrow, and it is focused on our 712 departments. We'll be working collaboratively. They'll be working through some work on the vision of the graduate and other areas. Our K-6 will be doing curricular with a focus on literacy and mathematics. And again, there's a strand of vision of the graduate conversation, a good piece of it, an hour conversation for our 6th grade teachers to really see what they're doing with the competencies in 6th grade, bringing them up to speed. So that's tomorrow afternoon.
Great.
Tonight?
Mr. Curtis?
I would just add, facilities and enrollment, there will be a public hearing on November 20th. So we'll really get the word out on that as well to get our school communities and interested
Talk to
citizens
people.
there.
Very important. I think, I will. I am just going to share just a one. We have, the Simsbury Free Library has the benefit of having Josh, who's our student representative, and Katie Hitson, who were both in, I'll never get it right. Please tell us where you were. Sèche France for the World War I battleground, and they are going to be discussing their trip, bringing artifacts to show you, and so it'll be at the Simsbury Free Library on Thursday at 6:30.
This coming, like, in 2 days?
Yes, in 2 days.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow's Wednesday.
Oh, Thursday, I'm
It'll
sorry.
be Thursday.
I thought you said Wednesday.
And so anyway, if anyone wants to hear more about that trip and
That's
that
great.
exciting adventure that you guys went on, I think it'll be a fun night to listen. Other than that, I think we're good to go.
Great.
So moving on to our meeting minutes of October 8th. Anyone have any questions, comments?
Thank you.
Bye, thank you all very much for coming.
Thank you.
I motion to, you want to? Okay. I motion to accept the meetings, minutes from, what was it? What's the date?
October 8th.
October 8th, as written.
Excellent. Second? Thank you very much. All those in favor? Opposed? Excellent. Moving on to Mr. Sullivan?
Yeah, one personnel item that we are recommending tonight, which is a guaranteed, non-salaried leave of absence for a world language teacher at Simsbury High School. Raquel Martinez Carrillo teaches both French and Spanish, so filling this is going to take some members of the department to step up. There's a part-time French teacher who can, the department supervisor is going to take an extra class for a little while, and everybody is stepping up because unfortunately this is for Raquel to attend to a medical emergency in her family for the next few months, so that you could see that the dates of the requested leave of absence right now are October 21st, 2019 to December 31st, 2019.
Anyone want to make a motion?
Move that the Board of Education approve the request for non-salaried guaranteed leave of absence for Raquel Martinez Carrillo, effective October 21st, 2019 through December 31st, 2019.
Second? Thank you. All those in favor? We wish her well and hope
I'll
that
extend
she
that
has
on your behalf.
success. We're moving on to a gift to the Simsbury Public Schools for the Cultural Enrichment Committee.
Okay, yes, this is the first of two gifts this evening, and this is an annual process with our Cultural Enrichment Committee. So their mission is to provide programming for all 5 of our K-6 schools. They do the selection and the coordination and contracting. So all the 5 PTOs have a combined donation of $16,284 to allow those programs to happen in our schools. This year it's Live Aloha and What is Acapella are the themes, and we would ask for your approval of this donation.
Kayla already told us about one of the, what was it, Aloha?
Yeah.
Aloha already happened. Anyone have any questions, comments? Anyone want to make a motion?
Move that the proposed gift of funds from all the elementary school parent-teacher organizations to provide cultural programming to elementary school students be accepted.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A huge thank you to the PTOs and the families that do this, because it really brings something unique to each of these schools, and I think the kids just love it. And I think it's only because of our great parents that we get to do fun stuff. Thank you very much. We have a gift of Central School.
Yes, I think this may be the second time that they've donated money for books to supplement classroom books, and this would be the Central School PTO's $1,831 donation that we'd like your approval on.
Excellent.
Great.
Questions, comments?
Move to approve.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Another huge thank you to the parents of Central School.
Yes.
It's so exciting. I'm sure all those kids will love that stuff. Moving on to information and reports.
Yes, Neil's gonna lead the way with 10-1 enrollment information.
Yeah, so as board members who have been here for a long time know, that October 1st is the day you count the students, and it's a statewide date. It's not just a Simsbury thing, and a lot of it is based on the documents that you'll see in the future on budget documents and student counts and per pupil expenditures. So it's a really important date. It's a pretty standard report. I can move through it quickly and leave time for your
Sounds great.
questions. So let
Thank you
me
very much.
get it going here. You can see we look at this in several different ways. The first is actual enrollment from last year to actual enrollment this year, and you can see the trends there, that we were 2 very different trends. Up at the elementary level, as that curve has turned, and up at the middle school level, although we expect that year to be a 1-year bump before another little downward trend. And then this would be the first of the years that we've been expecting, that the high school class, the 9th grade class is smaller. It's only 305 students compared to the typical, typically 375 over the last few years that we've been getting. So all of that was pretty much as expected. You'll see some nuance in a little bit of time, but I will point out the +7 at the bottom. That is modest change from 4,018 last year to 4,025 this year, but it's the first time it's gone up at all since 2004-05 school year. So 15 years since you've seen the curve start to turn with a few more students in the school district. We then look at each of the individual elementary schools. This is actual to actual again, and you can tell where the action was this summer. It was Latimer Lane and Squadron Line by a long shot, in that 37 more students in Latimer Lane School. That is up over 60 students from just 3 years ago, and 37 students in just the past year, and 19 more students at Squadron, whereas the others were within a handful. We can definitely trace some of this to new apartment buildings in town, and specifically, when I get into it a little later, I think you'll see that Aspen Green on the southern border of against the Avon border has really become one where we're seeing a student population move into that development. So now, instead of looking actual to actual, we look at actual to projected numbers. As you know, we do a study each year to predict what it's going to be. This is the last year that we're still working off of NESDEC's projections, and we're going to make the change to Malone and McBroom, who helped with our facilities enrollment. So the left-hand numbers are NESDEC's. And you can see we were 29 more than expected in the elementary level. So of the 49 that came in above, 29 were above projections. And again, it's the same trend. It's Latimer and Squadron again that saw the growth this summer, whereas everybody else was pretty close. And those middle school and high school projections were excellent. They were right on target for what those two schools were expecting. And 24 students more than expected. NESDEC had predicted 4,001. We ended up with 4,025. You think of being 24 off in the context of 4,000 total students, it's a pretty darn good projection. I mean, it's really off by less than a percentage point, if you will. This is always a way we look at it. I'm not sure what it really shows this year because it's where were the projections off a little bit, and I found it in sort of unusual grades this year. Second grade and fifth grade and sixth grade being that those would not typically be grades where you see student move-ins, so I don't know what to make of this one in 2019. I will note that we were pleased for the ninth grade to come in 9 students above projected to just get it over that 300 number. The projection was actually to have the first Simsbury High School class in a long, long time that would have been projected at 296, and we landed at 305 on October 1st. Projected to actual over time instead of the 1-year snapshot, how has NESDEC done over time? And you can see the last 4 years as those various housing complexes have come up to speed, we are seeing each year that the projection is coming in. I mean, the actual is coming in a little bit larger than projected. And the reason why I dragged 10 years back on this, so that you can see at the bottom of the chart, in the first 5 years of this sequence, our numbers were coming in below what NESDEC was projecting. So probably a whole lot to do with the economy and the strength of the housing market kind of turning in the last 5 years as opposed to where we were right in the wake of the 2008 recession. So we look at it over a 5-year span, 2000, I got to be able to read that, 15, 4,133 students. So whereas we were going down more dramatically before 2015, this is only 2.6% over 5 years. So really the slowdown has essentially really waned at this point. The next one is elementary over a long period of time of 15 years. It's hard to believe when you look at the top of that chart. We were at 2,727 students, K-6, at that marker in 2003, 2004. But you can see after going just below 2,000 for the last 4 years, we're back up over 2,000. Both NESDEC in its previous projections and Malone and McBroom are expecting that 2038 to keep going up. So you should expect that 2038 over the next few years. We will now take, in fact, not that we will take, last week I took the October 1st numbers and sent them to Malone and McBroom. So they're already kind of churning the next projection that I will present to you probably in early December as we get going with the budget process, okay?
But it's a couple hundred up over the next 5 years, right now?
Yeah, it is. They're in the 250, 2,300 range, yeah. So 4,025 is that October 1 number that we report to the state. I always do like to point out that there are 117 more preschool students. That is a total number. That's a mix of whether you're part-time, full-time, morning, afternoon, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday. We do it every way you want to do it. And there's 117 more students in Squadron Line School now, as our pre-K has been consolidated there, to get a system total of 4142. Why the high school number will keep going down is because the two largest grades in the entire district are 12th grade and 10th grade, with 377 and 342 students respectively. That fourth grade class right from kindergarten came in very low, and it remains the lowest cohort at 262 students. So as that group, unless something dramatic happens, as that group moves into Henry James in a few years, that's when Henry James is going to hit its lowest point. And then kindergarten and first grade, you can expect kind of a steady increase with cohorts from the time they go from kindergarten through middle school. They just add, 5 students a year, and they kind of get larger as they go. And I'll show, if you go forward, I could show the open choice slide. We, as you know, we had made a push with our open choice enrollment over the last few years. So this year, I can tell you, we did nothing but accept new preschool students and siblings of current students. We didn't open up any other seats other than kind of serve the families that we've already had in the system, and we always try to add 12 preschoolers. We had 12 at one point. Somebody dropped out at the last second, so we ended up with 11. And you can see that we've reached a new high water mark with those sibling seats that we really drew a lot of siblings of current students in, so that we are now 3 years running on hitting the 4% threshold. Our open choice enrollment is remaining just above 4%. This was not particularly remarkable this year, but we always look at part-time and full-time magnet attendance. So we had 125 Simsbury students at full-time magnet school programs. Some are Creek magnets, some are Hartford magnets. There's a different mix. It was down a little bit, but it wasn't down in any one school particularly strongly. It was 3 or 4 students here and 3 or 4 students there. We are seeing the popularity of 2 schools in particular. Wintonberry Early Childhood in Bloomfield, has a lot because you can get pre-K and K service there. And the Anna Grace Academy of the Arts right over the border in Avon at the bottom of the mountain there has sort of drawn a few students. So it's 18 less, but one of the key numbers is always, of the 125 students, 68 of them are in K or pre-K, and many of those 68 will come back to Simsbury over their early primary years. 9 students at part-time magnets. That's mostly the Arts Academy and a few at the Math Science Academy, but it's remained a very low number over the last couple of years. My favorite chart from the last few years, which is that I've sort of picked 2 dates a year to sort of meticulously track our new housing developments, and you can see where we are as of October 1st, and at Central School, it's 5 different complexes that have opened in the last few years, starting with Carson Way. Highcroft, by the time it's done with its next phase, is going to be at 272 total units, and yet we're not seeing a tremendous number of students from.
The Highcroft, the new thing they're working on are more more homes.
They're townhomes.
Right?
So if you would like a better description than the slide offers, I did do a 1-pager in your folder that will describe a little bit more of the projects for you.
Very nice.
Yeah, so that Highcroft number 3, phase 3, is townhomes, although not townhomes for purchase, rented townhomes.
Right.
And then Mill Commons and Mill Pond Crossing are sort of across from the high school by the Millwrights restaurant. The 20 being just the condos right behind Millwrights restaurant, and the 88 being the apartments up the road. Dorset Crossing, it has stabilized. I've said it a few times. I think it's something we need to have facilities and enrollment look at. So we can now expect high teens of low 20s as students at a Dorset Crossing. That has stabilized. Dorset Crossing is technically zoned for Terriffill, and yet worried about whether or not it might overwhelm Terriffill, we zoned it for Squadron Line. So it might be time to rethink that, given that our smallest classes are actually at Terriffill. It might help to move some of those students to Terriffill, and that's where the bus route out is, and that's where they're naturally zoned. Cambridge Crossing, if you've driven back there behind the skating rink, behind the ISCC, this is the development. It's a slow build. It's going to be 79 homes. They sell the home first, and then they spend 6 months building it. So they've sold 13. Only 6 have moved in. 5 of those first 6 have families in them. So we have to keep an eye on that one, although the real estate agents who I've been in communication with say that's not true of the 13. The 13 are about half and half in their view. But you're going to see a slow buildup of that community over the next 3 to 4 years is their estimate. Aspen Green is the one we need to talk about down at Latimer Lane. They're done building now, 181 units. 173 of those 181 are occupied, and 40 students are attending Simsbury Public Schools, 20-something of them at Latimer Lane right now. I mean, so it's a pretty significant, you can take a lot of that increase at Latimer Lane and say it's happened in the past year as Aspen Green has filled up. And then, of course, the ridge at Talcott Mountain, if you have driven by there frequently, that right now, obviously, the buildings take up a tremendous amount of eye space, but only about 50 are occupied right now, and we are not yet seeing the students that are coming from that development yet. That development also has a multi-year buildup, although occupancy will happen faster in that complex. So we will update this every 6 months as we've been doing. So
Cambridge Crossing isn't putting in apartments? I thought.
Cambridge Crossing is all single-family homes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
And you literally, they have spec homes. You go, you kind of choose what you want, and then they build it for you.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions about all that?
That's the enrollment piece.
I have a question. The kids that are the 9 that are part-time, do those include, or we don't count those, the kids that like do their cores at Simsbury High School but do some at like the arts or?
Yes,
Those are those kids.
that's who those students are. And then there might be, I think there's 1 or 2 at a technical school
Okay.
as well.
Okay.
So, but most of them are the Arts Academy kids.
Okay. And then the other thing is it correct to assume, I know we call it the town preschool, but all those kids are 100% always Simsbury school students? Or can't they be like a kid from anywhere?
Granby.
Right.
I'm going to have to get an answer to that, get back to you.
I don't know.
I'm not sure if you,
Right.
If you pay tuition as an out-of-town resident.
You might be able to, but if that's the case, the numbers are low.
the numbers are very low. But
Okay. Okay.
Could look into that.
I mean,
I will say,
It's right. If you stumped them, it's a good question.
I'm just wondering if it was like,
I-
if they all translate into students for
yeah,
us.
no, well, of course, the 11 who are open choice students are
Right, of
Hartford
course, yeah.
residents, but
And back in the day, when we were there, you had to prove residency before you registered.
Okay.
So
I don't
it
remember
was a
ever doing
residential
that when I did
component.
it, but I don't know.
yeah.
But I was a resident, so.
I'll
maybe I wasn't
I'll
paying
get the
attention.
answer from Nikki Mahan and get back to you with it. So,
Anyone else have any questions on this piece? Excellent. Well, we can move on to class size.
yep, we're going to do class size. I'm going to do the elementary piece, and then Anjanette and Ken will come up to do middle school and high school. So obviously, this board has paid a lot of attention to class size over the years, and we've done some revision of class size policy. Right now, you can see that when we look at elementary, the K2 range that we look at is 16 to 22 students. So about 3 columns in, you can see that's what we talk about. 16 to 22 students in primary, and then once it hits grade 3, we say that the appropriate range is 18 to 25 students. So looking further over, the percentages are so easy to figure out this year because you can see in 2019-20, we have exactly 100 classroom teachers at the elementary level in Simsbury. So it's making all my percentages I figure out about elementary
for you, Neil.
schools really easy. This year, we can say that 6 of the classes were over the class size range. 5 of those 6 were me holding my breath as kindergarten enrollment came in over late August. So we ended up with classrooms at Squadron Line, Latimer Lane, and Tooten Hills that all came in. When I say that there's 5 over, they're 1 student over. The range is 22, and we have 23 kindergartners in 5 of those classrooms. In order to supplement that, we hired tutors for each of those schools. So we did increase staffing, we just didn't increase it by a whole nother teacher. And plus, some of them we wouldn't have had rooms ready for when that decision was being made. So we haven't seen an influx since it happened. They've stayed at 23, but that's where we're at. There is 1 Latimer Lane first grade that's at 23. So those account for your 6 classes that are over the range. And this year there are 9 classes below the range. Quite frankly, most of those we're just seeing smaller classrooms at Terriffill School. So that when you look at the next slide, which is average class size, it's not surprising that Terriffill School has the smallest class sizes at 17.6. And given the influx of population that I showed you earlier, the ones with the largest class sizes, not surprisingly, are Squadron Line and Latimer Lane. So that's just another way to look at class sizes. But in terms of having those few kindergartens that came in over the range, otherwise, we hit our marks pretty well this year at the elementary level. It was just kindergarten keeping me awake in August. It was very, we were nervous that we were going to be forced to add a teacher at a very late stage of the summer, and we were able to avoid that.
Anyone have any questions about the elementaries?
All right, I'm going to have Anjanette and Ken both come forward. It's just 1 slide each for the middle school and high school, and I will say that both of them are very positive results in terms of where that happens for 2 reasons. That happens because of good budgeting, that we get the staffing right as you go through the budget process. But then it also happens because of these 2 who build excellent schedules that help balance class sizes. So it is a team effort, and these 2 are key to making it happen.
Okay, great. So I'll talk a little bit about Henry James. Having the projected enrollment numbers ahead of...
Can you put the mic in front of you?
Absolutely. Thank you. So having the projected enrollment numbers well in advance really allows us to plan for the needs of the upcoming school year. And knowing that for this school year, we were going to be up around 23, 24 students, Mr. Baker and I really had to have a conversation with the staff to look at our teaming in both grade levels and think about the balance of those teams. So in conversations with all of our teachers, we said, look, we're going to be a little bit heavier on the 7th grade side now, but what we had in the past were 3 full-time 8th grade teams, and we had 2.6 7th grade teams. So we knew we had to make some shifts. And what made the most sense for us, not only for this year, but looking at future enrollment down the road, was to really reassign the balance and to walk away with 7th grade team and an 8th grade team that both are 2 full-time teams and then 1.8 team. So it's really exciting to see that because of that change, which was a really smart change, we have a really nice balance of class sizes this year and meeting the goal of the policy. So we're happy to report that. It's also great to see that the number of classes exceeding the Board of Ed guidelines this year has gone down, right? We are down 5 from 9 to 4. And those overages are found predominantly in the core areas. So there are just a couple in your English classes, 1 in a social studies class, 1 in a wellness class, but very happy with those numbers. And then I'm really happy to also report that approximately a 50% reduction in the total number of those under-enrolled classes, down 12. So again, those can be found predominantly in some of those core classes and 1 of our wellness classes. So we are just happy to say that that decision we made as an entire staff really pays off in the numbers, and the class sizes feel really good at Henry James. Also, something that we want to point out is this year with the construction, we had numerous constraints to our schedule. We have well over a dozen teachers who are sharing classrooms this year. So when we put all those puzzle pieces together, it was less wiggle room for us to offer classes, and just a lot of, we don't want to step on each other's toes, who's in what room, and just constraints, which are positive constraints, our singleton classes, like our UA electives, our, Chinese classes. And with all of those constraints, we really have some great numbers to share tonight. So a lot of great work this summer, and I do thank you for the credit you give me to building this schedule, but I have to share that credit with Donna Stumper, who works side by side with me to balance those numbers, because she's under my scrutiny to make sure that they work, and it's a difficult task, but we do it, and we're happy to do it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Great. So, turn this. The one thing I want to point out is, I think I've been doing this 4 or 5 years. I was trying to remember. I can't remember the exact year I started this, but this is the first year
Your
where
hair has gotten grayer since then.
But thanks for not pointing it out.
For the best of us
This
now.
year is the first year that I've been able to give you numbers after our add drop period. So for those of you that don't know what the add drop period is, at the high school, we get a pretty significant number of students who try a course out and then drop a level or drop to a different class, and we have 2 drop periods. One is about 3 or 4 weeks into the school year, and then the end of the first quarter is when you can make those changes. So this is the first year where I think you've always gotten an accurate slice of where we're at the time, but this is really not where we've settled, but we had 63 add drops. So in the past, there were 63 different kids that we didn't quite take into account, but that we have this year. I'm very happy with this number. 74 is the lowest it's been in a very long time in terms of classes that are below, and we're very, very low with classes that are exceeding. I'm also happy because this takes into account that we cut FTE this year because of the shrinking enrollment at the high school, and I think we made the right choices in terms of where that was projected. I got asked around this time, I think almost last year, about where we can make some guesses and stuff with Mr. Sullivan and Mr. Curtis, and I'm like, I haven't seen any numbers yet, but we made some projections, and we were able to really hit it so that didn't impact our kids in ways that are negative. So I was happy with that. I want to also throw out that it's definitely a team effort here, and I appreciate what Neil had to say, but just as she has Donna, I have Kathy McElveen, who's next to me and does a great job. We also both share Cindy Heffernan, who's just phenomenal at this. And I also have, because of the dynamic of the 3 of us, instead of 4 at the high school this year, Greg Stillman, a guidance counselor, has stepped up and helped a lot with scheduling and actually did the add drops and has been a great part of that. As I looked at these numbers, you can always, I'm an English guy, but I realize you really can play with numbers and make them say anything you want them to say. So I kind of stopped playing with them. But one of the things I did is I looked at the number of classes that were below, and it's 74. And I got to about, and I have the exact number somewhere in here, but it was like 36 or 37 classes that are pretty unavoidable. Those are the singletons or doubletons. Those are, singleton is you only run one section of it. So 15 kids sign up, you're going to be below because there's 15 kids in the class. And the doubletons are you only run 2 sections of it. And I know you have deeper numbers in your packet, but you'll see when you get 30 kids sign up for a course, you have to run 2 sections. And those 2 sections are both going to be below. So those are kind of the unavoidable parts of that. And I really want to present the perfect schedule at some point while I'm doing this. That's why I really look at this stuff. And the other 40 are, I can give you an example where I had this year a couple of drops that came across my desk before the school year even started. And one was, there was quite a few in a French 4 level 2 class, and some was in the math class in the pre-calc high level. Not a big number, but a few. And when you look at it, it's French has 3 sections. One is not period 1 or 8. The other 2 are periods 1 and 8. And kids, believe it or not, like that's so important to them to get period 1 or 8 off, drop those types of courses. So a lot of this stuff becomes kind of unavoidable in terms of how we end up where we're at. But those are the numbers. I don't know if anyone has any questions or clarifications.
Anybody have any questions? Anyone want to check his numbers? It's a lot of work.
It's a great
It's a
job.
lot of work.
Thank you.
And we really appreciate all your energy into it because it's really important and it's the place where we can try to save some money and
Yep.
the things you've done are going to be helpful in that realm as well. So we appreciate all of your diligence.
Great, thank you.
Make sure all the kids are safe and happy and learning.
Yep.
And as I said, I'll just wrap up by saying this now feeds into the next year's projection process that's going to drive your budget process. So all of this is tied together in a really important way.
Matters.
Yep.
It all matters. Thank you.
But thank you.
Moving on to the capital improvement plan.
So I've asked Burke just to kind of walk us through the plan as we ended last year and roll things forward and some of the basic thoughts and shifts we have for just the first year to focus on. And we'll come back with much greater level of detail tonight, but just to talk through some of the strategies we see, as much of it has to do with the grounds at Simsbury High School.
Okay, so a little bit of background. Just this is our first cut at a process that we have between now and February 15th, which is the end point. So for Sharon's benefit, just to say this is just the first step. So with a 6-year capital plan, only the first year is what actually gets considered by the voters. So the fact that that first year rolled off, this is really just years 2 through 5. This roll forward is just taking years 2 through 6 of last year. That's all. It's not doing anything else. Same dollar amounts. And you can see that there was a log jam in year 2 with all kinds of projects, largely around the high school athletic department and infrastructure there. And then the largest single project on this is the Latimer Lane renovation, which has been getting moved out and moved out and moved out, and that number was not revised year after year. So we looked at that starting point, and then if you look at in your folder, you have the first draft of saying, all right, how would we prioritize this differently? So I'd ask you to try to compare those if one is on your monitor or if you've got paper next to paper. So first thing I would point to is that towards the bottom, really just zeroed out the Latimer Lane and said TBD, to be determined, because that's going to be, this is really the only project here that's part of that larger Tecton Facilities Master Plan process. So putting that off to the side, we focused, Jeff Pinney, our Director of Athletics, and Matt and I had taken a first cut at this, and we felt that we've highlighted two, in bold here, 2 projects. The first is our stadium bleachers and press box replacement. So that's an infrastructure project to maintain what we already have. It's been around since the 60s, needs ADA accessibility. There's lots of issues there. It also includes storage that's contained underneath the bleachers. So there's also a factor there. So we have kept that in year 1. We've increased the estimate, and we are working with the firm Milone and McBroom along with Silver Petroselli. That's a joint effort to try to get a cost benefit of what's the best way to replace those bleachers. Is it to do what we have now with a building for storage below, or is it to separate out that storage? Regardless, we've got to meet ADA codes and rebuild the press box. There's also permitting because it's in a floodplain, so there's a lot more complexity there than first meets the eye. So that's what that number is going to be. We're going to, Jeff, I believe, will have the opportunity to come back and give you a little more details, and we'll give you the results of that number, of the cost estimates that we get from Milone and McBroom as the fall and winter goes on. The second one is a project that wasn't even on here before, and that is titled the Simsbury High School Grass Field Reconfiguration and Irrigation Project. So the rationale behind that was, while we are very interested and still have a project called the second turf field number 2, we looked at Jeff looked at what was what the needs of the athletic department are, and the biggest need was really about maximizing the use of the fields we have to be multi-purpose. So we have 2 fields there now. One is a softball, one is a baseball, and then there's a backfield that could potentially be restored. That's farther back. So this number again is something we're going to be working with Mylon and McBroom to help us come up with better cost estimates, specifications. Again, wetlands and town permitting, needed to do better overall drainage, as well as the irrigation systems will need to be replaced. So we felt that, you know, the cost of that estimate compared with more than double to do a turf field, start there first by maximizing your existing resources. That was the rationale for year 1. And then you'll see that in year 2 for the, we still have the stadium facility phase 1, that would be restrooms, kitchen, things of that nature. And so I'm sorry, that's year 2 of this plan. And then year 3, we have the turf field. So that's how we chose to prioritize those for your consideration. And Jeff will be able to share further data with you at an upcoming meeting.
We'll have him come present the layout of the fields, what it currently looks like, and how we can maximize the space.
I think the bleachers are really important. They're not ADA accessible. That's really unacceptable to me, and they're not safe. Like they really need to be attended to. I think it's really important for us to make sure we understand the safety and health and welfare of our kids and our public.
And I also wanted to point out that the Henry James tennis courts, while not at the high school, those are used by our high school teams, and then it's used by middle school and public. So we pushed that out one year also. They seem to be holding up so far.
Did a repair.
We did
3 years
we
ago,
did
2 years ago?
yes. I think it's been at least 3. We did a different type of repair, and it seems to be holding up. So.
Our visitor bleachers are okay, because I noticed they're pretty far out. And I'm just wondering if you're doing bleachers.
They are
doing
I guess they're
bleachers.
just kind of a lower priority at this point. It's certainly a valid question of what might it cost to do things combined versus separately. So if that's something that the board wants us to consider, we can certainly add that to our scope of cost estimating.
You know, my recollection of them is that they're not they're not great bleachers, and
they're newer than the ones,
Newer
but
and
they're
safe,
different.
but
But they're
great.
but they're a different type of construction and
right.
and
It
just a
seemed like
different-
they were never
very
meant to
different.
be permanent.
I don't know.
They're also very rarely full.
Could I just ask you the relationship between the reconfiguration?
That's what I mean, they're very
But I'm
rarely full.
just saying, but you get a lot of Simsbury parents who sit on that side depending on where their kid is playing.
Could I just ask you the relationship between the reconfiguration and the turf, the second turf field? Will that design be incorporated into the reconfiguration so you're not kind of?
Very good question. So the primary grass field now would not be changed, because that would be the intention to be that second turf field. So it's definitely an integrated plan, and Jeff will be able to show you that visually when he comes in. We just wanted to get some of
appreciate it.
the initial priorities laid out tonight, just so you could ask questions, and then we can be sure to have
Yeah.
better.
Can I ask you one question? The district network infrastructure.
Right.
We talk a lot about sports and their needs, but like, is that just like,
That's just our
Internet, getting
IT.
people to
That's
work?
just our IT.
and that is adequate
network.
for?
So that isn't, we are buying technology every year in our operating budget. This is, we have kind of had this every other year concept, and this pays for not only more of the centralized hardware, but also we do projects such as replacement of phone systems for schools, and we're going to have to do some alarm systems and things of that nature. So that's where these types of monies go. They're not just sort of the annual operating. We buy new stuff each year.
Any other questions? You kids have any questions? You guys have anything you want to add? I know, you're seniors.
Young adults.
No, but they're not going to be sitting in the bleachers.
Oh,
in the
no, they're not. They'll come back and visit.
Till homecoming, perfect. Thank you very much. That's good to just keep tabs on it and know what's coming, and Look forward to more information as you get it. Thank you. Opening up to a second public audience. Seeing none, I am going to open an executive session. Anticipated the Board of Education will enter executive session for discussion regarding an attorney-client privileged information. So we will be going into executive session. Can I have a motion?
I motion.
Can I have a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Good to see you, Mr. Kennedy.
Whenever you say that, I have a motion. I don't really know because